The bell tolls. The midnight hour is upon us. It's time once again for two internet strangers to discuss the good and evil of the horror genre. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the terror within the Hallow-Holics Anonymous podcast.
Hi, Maddy. Why did the ghost haunt the lamp?
I don't know, Corey. Why did the ghost haunt the lamp?
Because it was a light sleeper. I got another one. What do witches ring for in a hotel?
I'm afraid to ask.
Broom service.
Okay, that's enough.
What has 4 eyes and sleeps in a waterbed?
I don't know. The Loch Ness Monster?
The Mississippi.
Well, that's all the time we have for...
Well, hold on there now. Maddy, aren't you forgetting something?
Oh, right. Podcast.
And if you're ever in need of a funeral home, just look for a sign that says satisfaction guaranteed or your mummy back.
Hold your tomatoes, folks. We've got a lot more to get through before this podcast is through. Hi, I'm Maddy.
And I'm Corey.
And this is Hallow-Holics Anonymous.
A show about all things horror and occasionally Halloween.
It feels like we haven't recorded in a while, Corey.
Oh my god, you say that every week. We recorded on the 2nd. 6 days ago, dude. 7 days ago. We're technically recording on schedule, just on the wrong day.
Then that means it's not on schedule.
Well, my point is, every time we start, you're like, oh, it's been so long. And I miss you too throughout the week, even though we are kind of in constant contact all the time. But it hasn't been that long.
Have you ever had an argument with a horror purist? The sort of person who doesn't want to laugh before or after they scream? How dull. What would Tales from the Crypt be without the Crypt Keeper's quips? Or Maximum Overdrive without, well, just about everything that happens in it? Langoliers without the flying toothy time-space meatballs? Frankenstein without Abbott and Costello? The fact is, horror comedy is one of the easiest ways to introduce a child to the genre of horror without having to worry they'll have nightmares. Yes, Corey, I know your goal would probably be to give the kid nightmares, but that's an entirely different subject.
That was inflicted on me as a child. It deserves to be inflicted on other children.
I can't imagine a world where comedy and horror can't play nice or nasty, and I don't want to.
Agreed. And I would like to add that I do very much dislike horror purists. I don't like it when people suck the fun out of things, and that's what those people do. Anything purists just take the fun out of things.
Yeah.
I like fun.
Exactly. The people, even podcast purists, I was talking to this guy who, I won't describe him because he'd probably know who I'm talking about if he heard it somehow, but he basically said his main purpose in podcasting is to be intellectual. And he only pursues intellectual thought and philosophy and discussion. And I made a joke and he didn't get it. I don't like that guy.
I don't like him either, and I haven't even met him. I feel like there's so much more I want to say about other podcasters, but I don't want to alienate our peers, so I'm going to cut it right there. I haven't had a great time meeting other people who do this, if that makes sense.
I gotcha. It's
anyway.
Tough to branch out unless you're already kind of in some kind of huge group about a subject, unless you're in a community already.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, meeting other people through those communities hasn't really been super fun for me.
Yeah, and let's be honest, horror fans, you're kind of creepy.
Some more than others.
Yeah, and the shit you guys watch, man. How do you sleep at night?
Yeah, it's your fault a Serbian film got made, guys.
And on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye to Steven.
I don't know if we need to say goodbye to Steven. I just think we need to cut down on Steven. Guys, we're thinking about playing with the format a little bit and maybe doing the game less often or very rarely. I think that we're starting to get into a routine, and I think we need to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that eventually.
We might even come up with different games to swap out. I'm not sure what kind. We'll get to that when we do. So before we move on to whatever game or whatever thing we decide to do today, let's try out some horror news.
Horror news.
Liv Tyler was just offered the role in the new Child's Play remake coming up.
I assume she's going to play the mom.
I would assume so. She was just offered the role. There's nothing cemented right now. Andy's mother, Karen, so.
It would be weird if she played Andy, but I could get behind it. If they kind of gave her the Hobbit treatment and shrunk her down.
Hey, maybe they'll just put her face on Chucky.
That would be creepy. Or her dad could be Chucky.
Oh, nice
And
little
they could
reverse thing there.
just shrink down Steven Tyler and just keep him who he is, and it would be fine. Yeah, I have a really small little bit. On October 9th, they will be releasing a 4K version of The Evil Dead. It promises that the blacks will be blacker and everything will generally be clearer. So you guys can all go out and buy it again for the 10th time. It'll be my 4th time purchasing it. So, and I'm definitely going to get it.
I feel like out of every genre, especially these days with companies like Scream Factory, horror fans invest more in buying newer and newer copies of the same movie than any other type of nerd on the planet.
Oh, definitely. One of the smartest things I accidentally did a few years ago was sell my entire DVD collection. It was an accident. I was really hard up for money.
I thought you were going to say drunk, but
No,
that's a little better.
No, I was going through a rough time, and I sold all my DVDs so I could pay rent. I've been streamlining and rebuying only the stuff I know I'll watch over and over again.
Well,
So it was great, because now I'm just starting over, and it's been fun.
Well, if you had a copy of The Unborn on DVD or VHS and sold it, this August, on the 14th, you'll be able to purchase the first official Blu-rays of The Unborn.
I noticed that. I'm pretty excited about that. The Unnameable is actually getting released on DVD as well, although I don't remember. It may already be out.
Well, this one will definitely be out by the time this episode hits, but I would definitely recommend getting it. Looks pretty awesome, and frankly, anything Scream Factory releases is going to be good. It also includes audio commentary with Rodman Flender and Adam Simon.
I wonder if they'll do The Unnameable 2 as well. Sorry, I know we're both talking about two different movies, but
You're totally into that.
Yeah, anytime anybody mentions The Unborn, I think of The Unnameable because I loved The Unnameable. I used to rent it at Giant Eagle used to rent VHS by my house, and I used to rent The Unnameable 1 and 2 once a month. Those movies were great. And I'm hoping the sequel comes out eventually too.
So, Universal Studios this year, for their Halloween Horror Nights, is doing an 80s horror slaughter cinema feature. Everything is going to be 80s themed, guys, and it's going to be incredible.
Oh, why am I never going to get to do anything like that? That sounds so cool.
Yeah, I mean, the long and short of it is you work in theater.
And that's right at peak work time. Plus, I'm still trying to build up my savings from the 3 months I have off.
Well, if you
Someday.
end up working behind the scenes, you could be involved with Halloween Horror Nights.
But that would require me to go to Florida, and I don't like Florida.
Floridian listeners, he doesn't mean that.
No, I do. I think you guys are probably mostly fine. That's all I'm going to say about Florida.
All right, well, that's all the news I have.
Oh, yeah, I'm out too.
Okay, then I guess we should move on to either the movies or the format experiment idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything. Like you said, trivia, and that was broad, and I didn't come up with anything.
Okay, so just flying off the seat of my pants. Horror
I can hear
film,
you typing.
Oh,
you meant just making stuff up. You didn't mean straight out of your head.
I'm going for horror history. Okay.
Like today in horror.
Yeah, so you're going to apply a cool effect to your voice and say, on this day in horror history.
All right.
No, not the devil. Something happier, more peppy.
On this day in horror history.
Maybe dial down the reverb. Just a little.
On this day in horror history. Was that better?
A little bit better.
On this day in horror history.
Shirley Jackson died.
I like this one.
August 8th is notable for the release of Hold That Ghost, Kaltiki, the Immortal Monster, Frankenstein Conquers the World, The Fiendish Plot of Dr. Fu Manchu, Stand By Me, A Cat in the Brain, Komodo, Mortuary, My Wife and My Dead Wife, and Black Spot. But yeah, Shirley Jackson died. Oh, Fay Wray died too.
So this new thing is just going to be like, who died today?
Well, no, Karen Black did too.
Well, now we can answer the question Rocky Horror brought up. Whatever happened to Fay Wray? She's dead.
At the age of 96.
Perfect.
Richard Deacon, The Dick Van Dyke Show.
Oh, I don't care about... I can't think of a show I care less about than in fact, I don't think I can think of a person I care less about than Dick Van Dyke. I know that people think he's this comedic genius, and I've given him a chance, just everything I've ever watched him in. I just want to punch him in his weird, elongated face.
I love Dick Van Dyke.
It's just something about... Just look. He looks like a ventriloquist dummy with flesh instead of wood.
Gosh, I've never heard so much venom about Dick Van Dyke.
I'm sorry. I feel a little bit bad that I'm so full of hatred for him. I'm sure he's a nice man.
Does it make you feel better to know that Rory Calhoun, who played the farmer in Motel Hell, was born on August 8th, 1922?
A little bit. I like that movie.
This was a segment from...
Shit. Hold on.
What did I say before?
On this day in horror history.
On this day in horror history.
All right, that works. Okay, we've got a segment. Cut and print.
Good work.
Okay, I almost feel like we should start with your movie first, because it's a little bit more child-friendly.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, cool.
It gets bad on Friday the 13th, but it gets worse on Saturday the 14th.
The Book of Evil!
Evil? Evil?
Richard Benjamin, Paula Prentice.
We've inherited a house with a curse.
Oh, come on, Mary. You know you don't believe in curses.
Well, somebody did the dishes, and we're the only ones in this house.
An innocent family driven absolutely batty. Just when you thought it was safe to look at the calendar again comes Saturday the 14th. The year's #1 horror comedy spoof.
God, look at all these owls.
My name is John Hyatt, and I've got bats in my belfry.
You know how many? We charge by the bat.
Hold it right there, Mac.
No, darling, keep it away. No, thank you very much.
I'd like to take a look at her neck.
Well, if you don't trust me after 311 years of marriage...
When I leave this house, there'll be nothing left here to be afraid of.
Every shroud has a silver lining, so if you see every other chiller this year, you'll need Saturday the 14th.
Oh, this must be your charming wife. Famine. War.
Major pest control.
Death!
It's your chance to laugh at everything that ever scared you.
Come on, Billy, quit fooling around.
Give me a kiss, darling.
Oh, let me just see who that is. I'll be back for that kiss.
Be sure to see it before sunrise. Saturday the 14th.
So for the first time ever, guys, I get to talk about my movie first. And I'm sorry you have to... Well, no, you know what? I'm not sorry you have to sit through listening to me talk about it. Because I watched this movie for you, so you don't have to now.
Unless you want to.
Unless you want to, yeah. So a little very, very brief bit of background here. I remember watching this movie repeatedly as a child, and I thought it was hilarious, although I might have gotten it confused with the sequel, or maybe I watched the sequel just as much. I don't know. So I thought it would be fun to, like, revisit my past and watch it again. I'm not sure it was, but we'll get to that. So please bear with me, guys. This review may be a little bit disjointed and sometimes wrong because I lost interest in this movie and spent some of its runtime browsing Reddit. I apologize, but it just couldn't hold my attention. I even had to watch a little bit of it again earlier tonight, like before we started, just to make sure I wasn't getting a couple things wrong. Like I sort of jumped around right when I got back.
I did wonder why you picked this movie when you said it, and I thought maybe there's something good about the movie I don't remember.
No, there's nothing good about it. Well, there's a couple good things about it. So this movie reminds me a lot of a sitcom from the 80s. It's about a well-adjusted, happy family that inherits a creepy old house from a dead relative. They're then warned that it's cursed as the executor of the estate dies immediately after warning them. It turns out that this house holds the Book of Evil, which is often used in these movies as like the generic MacGuffin to like cause all the problems. There's always a Necronomicon. There's a Grand Grimoire. There's, does Harry Potter have a book?
Yes, it's the Diary of Thomas Marvolo Riddle.
Okay, anytime anybody starts anything with diary, I think Anne Frank. I'm like, Maddie, that can't be right.
Well, there's also Frankenstein's journal, which every Frankenstein movie has a journal, even the one where he's in prison, because the journal is technically the wall he's writing on.
That's true, and in fact, I have a Frankenstein's journal right on the other side of the room from me. But that is neither here nor there. This book, when read from, releases a host of monsters into the world. Every time he turns a page, a new monster is released. After he's finished reading, he's attacked by this four-armed werewolf thing and finds out that the book can hurt the monsters. Not by reading from it, mind you, but by bashing them with it. He smacks old wolf arms right out a window.
Doesn't it have this weird, like, hand-shaped head, too?
Did you say ham or hand?
Hand. Like,
I think it's
fingers.
I see what you mean, but I think it's just badly sculpted horns is what you're seeing there.
Well, its eyes are on the end of it, though.
No, that's the cute little demon thing. I'll get to him later.
Oh, okay, sorry. I got them mixed up because they're all pretty much people in...
crap.
Suits. Monster suits.
Yeah, at one point you can even see the half-assed creature from the Black Lagoon seam. Like, you could actually see the back of the split back of his mask.
I'm sorry, do you not remember the Spookies? I've seen worse.
Well, yeah. This movie was actually filmed in 3 weeks, and boy, does it show. So he then hides the book, which is stolen from him, probably by his newly created vampire mom. Do you remember if she was a vampire at that point, though, Maddie? I honestly wasn't paying enough attention.
It wasn't until more like halfway through the picture, I think, after the Gill man had tried to rape his sister.
Oh, okay. Then how did the book disappear?
I think he just... I'm not sure. It's...
No, because the kid... Oh, the mom did it when she was cleaning, but I thought she was a vampire when she cleaned his room already.
No, it took her a while to start being vampire-y.
I'm going to have to go back and check that.
Okay. There were
Regardless.
I will say, though, as far as she's concerned, there was that really funny moment when Van Helsing, or whatever you call that character, showed up, and then she just, like, looked at him and screamed and ran out of the room.
Yeah, that was pretty great. She's got some pretty, like her overreaction to garlic at the dinner, too, was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But I suppose if I had to pick something I enjoyed in this movie, it would be the general lack of reaction to many of the things happening in the film.
Especially on the dad's part.
Yeah, everybody does it, though. Like, nobody cares when that lawyer dies at the reading of the will. He just dies, and everybody's sitting there, and they cut to the house. Nobody cares when the cop neighbor gets his neck broken. Like, obviously, in the moment, everybody's freaking out, but then it's just his wife barely even cares. When she sees the head later, she's like, oh, I found my husband. Doesn't even matter that he's dead.
She's like trying to get him to pay attention to her.
Yeah. The part when Vampire Mom, well, before she's Vampire Mom, pulls out the skull and just dusts it off and puts it back in without, like, I mean, granted, that's something I do, but I'm a weirdo. This is like the normal all-American family doing this kind of stuff. And this really adds to the whole 80s sitcom aesthetic, I think, because nothing ever mattered. Like, you'd have a very special episode and everything would go back to normal next week. Mm-hmm. And that's really what this reminds me of.
Well, there's some fun stop motion, too, like when that flower plant dies.
Does it come to life again, too, or am I mixing up two movies?
She just sprays it with water, and he's like, you made that dead plant look so much more alive.
Oh, that's right. That is a pretty good job. And it's so deadpan by him. It's pretty great.
Yeah. Well, he's a good actor. Let's be honest. It's all a good cast. It's just not a good script. Except the kid, he's really bad.
Well, you know that the parents are married in real life, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, as they may not be anymore, but I read somewhere while I was researching this that they had been together for 52 years at some point.
Then it's probably recently, because he was not that old when this movie was made.
Yeah, maybe 52 was, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So the monsters that have been let into the world include a half-assed mummy. Actually, the mummy looked pretty cool, I thought. They just didn't use it very much.
Mm-hmm.
A very lame creature from the Black Lagoon ripoff, which, as you said, was involved in the bathtub scene, which I'll get to a little bit, not much. I don't care enough to talk about it very much.
Yeah, I would just like to say that the teenage sister is definitely a teenager.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was a little creepy, but that's another thing that happens in the 80s all the time. Like, for some reason, it was okay back then to show kids in their underwear. It happened a lot.
Oh, yeah, it did.
And it never fails to make me feel weird. It even made me feel weird then.
Well, it just creeped me out that it wasn't that, like, they showed her climbing in the bathtub and everything, which they censored properly, no problem, but it was seeing her panties go down her legs. That was weird. They didn't need to show that.
Agree. No, I agree. And I actually really did like the way they used the bubbles to send, like, the bubbles really stayed in place well. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, we've also got the sort of four-armed werewolf thing, and the one you were talking about was this adorable little demon that reminded me of the alien from Mac and Me if someone pulled Mac's eyes out of their sockets and moved them to a couple of fleshy antennae on top of his head. There are also a couple of vampires who try to purchase the house in a legally, albeit slightly creepy manner, talking about having children as often as possible, using it as a pun. It was pretty gross. This introduces the movie's the only real claim to star power it's got, as we see a much younger but still bald Jeffrey Tambor from Transparent and Arrested Development, and one of my favorite shows of all time, Max Headroom.
Max Headroom is awesome.
Yes, it is. I've actually been very slowly working through the episodes all summer.
He may not have the star power he once did, but Richard Benjamin, who plays the dad, is... I mean, he was in Westworld, and he was in Love at First Bite. He was in My Favorite Years, so... Mm-hmm. I mean, well, he directed My Favorite Year.
I forgot about Westworld. Yeah, so he's something.
Yeah.
So this movie tries really hard to spoof everything it can and fails at pretty much all of it. There's a bathtub scene that really tries to shoehorn Jaws into a scene with the lame creature from the Black Lagoon.
It takes too long to do it.
Yeah, it takes way too long. It's a teenage girl. It's a little too rapey. It's all just very strange. So this one is kind of weird to me. So they move into this house, right? It's on Elm Street.
Of course.
It's across the street.
Which is weird because it's... I mean, what year did Nightmare on Elm Street come out?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Yeah, okay.
The house is on Elm Street. Across the street is a house that looks very much like Nancy's house in Nightmare on Elm Street. But this movie came out in 1981, which was 3 years before Nightmare on Elm Street was released in 84. This, to me, can't be a coincidence because there's the red door, there's the whole Elm Street thing.
There's the thing in the bathtub going between her legs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, these are all references to A Nightmare on Elm Street, which wasn't actually out yet, but there had to have been, like, I don't know if Wes Craven talked to somebody on the production or what happened here, but...
I don't remember really exactly, but I think his spec script might have floated around for a few years before he finally got option for it, so... Don't quote me on that.
Surprised me. And I mean, 3 years isn't really that long to be in pre-production either, so definitely somebody could have heard about it, but it's kind of weird if you think about it to spoof a movie that isn't even out yet, because nobody knew Nightmare on Elm Street was going to be
you're not spoofing
what it was. Well, true. Kind of. I don't know. It's really weird. If anybody out there knows anything more about this, let me know. It's just, it's way too specific to be a coincidence to me, but yeah, I'm not going to look it up because I don't want to spend any more time with this movie than I have to. I spent some time researching it and couldn't find anything.
I think this movie is dumb but cute, and the costumes are silly, but I've seen worse. I think you have to be in the right mindset and probably age group, but in the context of things like the alligator people or Attack of the Crab Monsters, it's watchable. It might be best to watch this right after a couple of movies like that on a Saturday afternoon with a bowl of Lucky Charms or Wheaties.
Yeah, I think the reason I'm hating on it so much is because this was one of those movies that really defined me as a horror fan when I was a child. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember sitting down, and again, I'm not sure if it was this or the sequel, but I remember sitting down and watching this movie over and over again. To the point where my mom probably complained about it, that it was like this and like the Swamp Thing. I watched those movies all the time when I was a kid. My mom was so over it. And the G.I. Joe cartoon movies. I love those too, but those aren't horror, so we won't talk about those.
I was the same way about Fright Night 2 and Child's Play.
See, I think those still hold up.
Well, yeah, I know. I had better taste, apparently.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You mean... Oh, I got you. I thought you meant that you went back and hated them.
No, not at all.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't think I think I'm hating on this movie so much because I'm disappointed that I kind of ruined some nostalgia, which is a risk you take when you rewatch movies from your childhood, I guess. Mm-hmm. Anyway, back to hating on the movie. Possibly my least favorite joke in the entire movie is the mother repeatedly confusing bats with owls.
Yeah, it's a miss.
It's stupid. It happens at least twice. Again, I didn't pay attention, so it could have happened a bunch more times. It's almost cringeworthy, and it would certainly be cringeworthy if I cared at all about what was happening in this movie, but I'm so jaded about this film that I just couldn't cringe.
I was fascinated by the weird meals the father was making.
I didn't, again, checked out. I don't think I caught that.
They ate olive loaves so much, and the weird sandwiches he made, he put everything but the kitchen sink in them. He was a weird guy.
Oh, right, because he put peanut butter on that, ham and pickle sandwich.
Yeah. There's something behind that. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe he was the real monster.
All along.
So anyway, vampire mom, who is a vampire at this point, is attacked by owls in the attic. So the husband opens up the yellow pages and picks a random exterminator. Luckily, this particular company employs Van Helsing, who's in search of this book, the Book of Evil. Luckily, yeah. This is, again, very, very poor writing. Of course, they do the most logical thing they can possibly do and invite the creepy exterminator to dinner. Again, there may have been a reason for this, but I missed it because I was probably reading about some nonsense on Reddit I can't think of right now. So during this dinner, eventually the conversation turns to maybe we should just sell the house, which is the logical thing to do at this point. When Van Helsing says, and this is a quote, "Selling the house now would be like closing the barn door after the horse eats your child," which may be the greatest line in modern film. I don't think I've ever heard something more nonsensical and brilliant. This is poetry to me. I absolutely love this line, and I will think about it for the rest of my life now.
His character, while a bad actor, was still probably one of the funniest elements in the movie, just the stuff he did and said.
Yeah, until the end, but we'll get to that too. A lot of his stuff is a little bit forced, I thought.
I would
all the humor's forced.
I would just like to say the final battle scene in this movie makes the one in Nightlife look epic.
Yes, it really does. Oh, I totally forgot to mention this. It's funny because I haven't mentioned this and I have in my notes. We're then reminded once again, but we haven't been reminded at all because I haven't said it. So this whole time the mom keeps mentioning about, let's have a dinner party. We just moved in. Even with all this crazy stuff happening, she still wants to have this dinner party. And we're reminded of it over and over again, just in case we forget that Saturday the 14th is an important date in this film. So apparently the whole reason Tambor's character turned the wife into a vampire was to make her sleepwalk to the book and steal it. But of course, seriously, this is the one vampire thing she really does. Unless, again,
trying
something
to
else.
attack her husband.
Yeah, but that was more of her being a vampire and less of Tambor, I think, controlling her at that point.
Ah, okay. Well, fair enough.
I really think the only reason he made her a vampire is because he was trying to step out on his vampire wife.
Oh, you don't... Well, they certainly made mention of that a couple times.
Yeah, it's hinted at. And considering, like, this is the only tactical thing the vampires do with her being a vampire, is making her sleepwalk to go steal the book.
Oh, Count Tambor, you dog.
Yeah. So again, this is where everything gets confusing, and I think I remember it. I had, how did she steal it from her son in the first place if she can't pick it up? But then I remembered that she was cleaning the room and moved the book. She didn't actually take it. She just put it somewhere else in the beginning of the movie. That's what confused me. And when she went to get it, she couldn't touch it, obviously, not thinking that, at least not at this point, thinking she should just grab some gloves.
Well, I will just say that in the context of 3 weeks, it's a lot better than you'd honestly expect from a movie.
Yeah, I think it's terrible.
No, I'm not saying it's a good movie. I'm just saying in the context of 3 weeks, it could be a lot worse.
So I have a theory about why she moved the book, because you see the book, the kid's reading it, and then he puts it under his pillow. And the next time you see the book is when Vampire Mom tries to go get it, and it's in the linen closet under some blankets, I think I figured out why this happens. So there's no way she could have hid the book in the first place unless she did it because she was in with the vampires the whole time and wanted to be turned. I think that her moving the book was a calculated effort to become a vampire. That's only me trying to make this movie better. The script is definitely not smart enough to pull this off. But it does make everything seem a little bit less shitty if you look at it that way. So that's my headcanon.
Well, we'll have to do a fan fiction about it.
Okay. At one point, the vampires do decide to get a little bit more involved, more directly involved, which leads to a great scene where Jeffrey Tambor jiggles himself into changing into a bat.
Yeah.
Like, just thinking about it again, I'm laughing about it. He just sort of does this weird jiggle in his car and turns into a bat and flies out. When his vampire wife just turns into a bat, no jiggling necessary. It was just this thing he did. I loved it. At this point, there's a monster party where all of the earlier mentioned creatures have a lovely time playing cards, eating all the family's food, and trashing their house.
Really? They just seem more like bros than monsters.
Yeah, they're just it's just like a frat party, essentially. But this is the night before. This is the evening of Friday the 13th. The day of the party, Saturday the 14th, which we are repeatedly reminded of, they get trapped in the house, which must have been pure torture, as these were the days before the internet. I can understand and totally relate when they all go a little stir-crazy after being locked in there for a few hours. There's nothing to do.
Well, luckily they have Barbra Streisand LPs to keep them occupied.
Yeah, in the Twilight Zone, because that's all the TV played, which I kind of did love that. Although even that might get old after a while.
Well, it didn't actually sound like Rod Serling's voice, so I'm sure that was just someone
they would have had to pay royalties.
Yeah.
And this movie did not afford that. So their guests arrive, and the guy who delivered their pizza sticks around for some reason.
He can't leave the building.
Is it because he walked in, or I feel like he walked in the house, though, because he wanted to go to the party and then couldn't leave.
Well, he walked in for some reason. I think he was carrying the stuff for the old man and handed it to him. And the little boy tried to leave behind him, and that's when he got trapped too. So
he's actually one of the characters I don't totally hate. I kind of love him just kind of hanging out in the background. I won't extend... I'm sorry, go ahead.
He's pretty optimistic about the whole affair the whole night.
Yeah, he really even thanks him on the way out at the end. I won't extend the same courtesy to the rest of their guests. They're the worst, and I hope they all die terribly, which a lot of them do.
Well, they are in-laws.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Vampire Mom finally figures out that she can just put on a little pair of oven mitts and grab the book. But it's too late. Little Billy has found it and run off with it. Also, I should mention Billy is the name of the child that I have not said yet because I still care. Though it's not a big house and the movie needs a plot device, so I'm sure he's going to turn up shortly. Some other stuff happens and a couple more people die. Then the vampires turn up, and the plot twist is revealed, Maddie. Van Helsing is the bad guy.
What?
He wants to destroy the book.
Hold on. Do that again?
Van Helsing is the bad guy.
No!
Yes. How clever is that?
It's so unexpected.
I know.
It goes against all of the expectations we as audience members have.
Exactly. Van Helsing is never the bad guy. This is the dude that fought Dracula. How could they do this? Anyway, he wants to destroy the book so the monsters can roam free and he can rule the world somehow, or something. I don't know. I don't really know how that works. And then there's this really stupid showdown between... Here's what I have written here. There's a stupid showdown between the Tambor and Van Helsing where they shout nonsensical sound effects and shoot each other with eye lasers. And the sound effects are really, but the sound effects are like foghorns and like train sounds. It's so stupid. Like, I don't understand. I just don't understand how somebody thought this was funny, or how nobody just spoke up and was like, hey, this is dumb. I don't want to do this.
It was for a kid's movie, and you know what? Imagine that scene without any sound effects.
Yeah, but it's PG-13, so it's not like a kids movie. You know what I mean?
Well, granted.
Or wait, was it PG? Shit.
I can't imagine it was PG-13.
PG. Okay, you're right. I'm wrong. PG. So yeah, I guess maybe a kid would find that funny.
Well, it's not really a kid would find that funny. It's maybe an adult could believe that a kid would find that funny.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good way to look. Or maybe just adults are so out of touch with what kids think is funny.
I still think it would be better if you would just, like, if they'd done everything they did, but instead of the sound effects, it was just them going, blah,
blah. Yeah, you're right. And there is a little bit of that, too. There's the Tambor going, and his wife making that terrible shrill cat sound. Ugh.
Yeah.
So anyway, the kid hits Van Helsing with the book and he explodes because apparently destroying the book doesn't free all the monsters. It destroys them and reverses all their magic. Well, it doesn't reverse the deaths. The mother isn't a vampire anymore, which I don't really understand. Does that mean the Tambor and his wife are no longer vampires? Because they're definitely still vampires when they leave. I mean, they have their capes. They don't want to put on board shorts or anything.
Yeah. I think it means the Tambor released her.
Oh, okay, maybe. All's well that ends well. The family moves across the street to the Nightmare on Elm Street house that isn't actually the Nightmare on Elm Street house, and everybody that died stays dead. The end. That's the movie.
Having watched this, do you feel like you're ready to watch Saturday the 14th Strikes Back?
Actually, I'm going to watch it tonight after the podcast because you know how ridiculous I am about that stuff, and I have to. I don't want to. I have to. I've got it all queued up and everything. It's like ready to go. Before we get there, I have some random trivia.
Oh, random trivia.
Random trivia. So Paula Prentice, who played the mother, broke her arm the day before filming started, which is why in every scene you see her holding something or there's something draped over her arm. They're hiding her cast. The entire 3 weeks she had to hide her cast. Like I said earlier, the parents were married in real life. And again, this is probably the script thing, but it was hard for me to believe because sometimes the chemistry was just really off between those two. But I think that was the script. I don't think that was them. Like I mentioned earlier, this movie was made in 3 weeks. Apparently this was due to the fact that another film called Thursday the 12th was in production around the same time, which later changed its name to Pandemonium to avoid confusion, and I can only assume being compared to this movie in any way. I also now have to find this movie and watch it because it's indirectly related to Saturday the 14th, and I'm a weirdo.
Well, just so you know, Richard Benjamin is still married to Paula Prentice.
Oh, cool. Good for them.
Yeah.
They're still very much in love. Julie Corman, Roger Corman's wife, financed this movie.
That makes sense. Corman, of course, 3
Of
weeks.
course.
I was thinking of Corman, and I thought, no.
Yep.
And it all comes together.
As it often does. Like we were just saying, there is a sequel, Saturday the 14th Strikes Back. I have never seen it, but now I must, just to witness the second train wreck made by the same producer, the same director, one of the writers, and the same composer. So I guarantee you it's going to be the same crap, although it's got a pretty decent cast. Ray Walston's in it. The kid, Jason Presson, is really familiar from the kid from Gremlins 2. That kid, the Explorers, the main kid from the Explorers, that kid. That's Jason Presson. Yeah, and there's some other people in there.
I remember a kid in Gremlins too.
I don't know, maybe it's only the beginning. Michael Berry who I actually had lunch with accidentally. He was a very nice guy. Huh. He's in it as well. That's the really ugly dude from Hills Have Eyes, for those of you out there that may not. He's also in Weird Science.
Oh.
Rejects.
Okay.
Yeah, he always gets cast as the ugly weirdo, but he's a generally very nice guy. He's apparently a professor. He teaches English or something. He was
in an episode of Tales from the Crypt, wasn't he? As Van Helsing. Oh, yeah, he did play Van Helsing in an episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, nice.
That's funny.
So, yeah, I really loved this movie as a kid. Apparently, I was a stupid kid, and I need to stop revisiting my past. It's often a very disappointing place.
Well, let's move on from your childhood and into puberty with my film. Student Bodies, also coincidentally from 1981.
Hello, it's me, the heavy breather from every horror film you've ever seen. You know me. First I terrorize my victim by the telephone. Then I choose my murder weapon. A gun? Nah, too easy. A hatchet? Nah, I always use a hatchet. For this movie I want something very frightening and deadly. Then I climb the stairs to surprise my victims. Why do they always live upstairs? This movie's a comedy, so killing's not so easy. Sugarless. The movie's called Student Bodies, so I picked a typical American high school.
This is Mr. Peters, your principal.
Mr. Peters! You're naked!
Yes, Toby. All these years I've been secretly naked underneath my clothes.
Meet the rest of the faculty. The shop teacher, the guidance counselor, the janitor with the IQ of a handball.
What's he doing?
Sex education teacher.
This is totally unnecessary, ugly, and gets in the way.
Your mother?
She also told me that sex was bad and dirty, but only with my father. With everyone else, she said it was great.
I'm into murder myself, and student bodies are going to be everywhere.
Dead bodies downfield. 15-yard penalty.
See Student Bodies, a killer comedy.
This movie was pretty awesome.
Alfred Hitchcock, Roman Polanski, Val Lewton, John Carpenter, all immensely talented horror icons who had absolutely nothing to do with this movie. A horribly funny adventure with a severely asthmatic serial killer in black gloves known as the Breather, as he navigates through life with unique and terrifying weapons with only one goal in mind: killing sexually active teenagers and their mildly disturbed teachers.
I wonder if this was the movie that really, hammered home the whole morality play issue with slasher movies, because it wasn't really a thing until it was a thing. You know what I mean? Friday the 13th, I just rewatched them again, 1 through 6 this summer, and they really don't push the morality of what everybody's doing. There's definitely revenge, but, yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering if movies like Student Bodies is actually where people get the you have sex, you die in these movies kind of thing.
Well, it was kind of the first spoof of the genre in general, but, I mean, by that time, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Prom Night, they had all come out, and 1981 was actually one of the biggest years for slasher films. When it was released in theaters, Student Bodies was double billed with Night School. So at the time, maybe...
Oh, I just got super excited because I got Night School confused with, I think it was Moving Violations, that zany semi-boob comedy where everybody had to go to traffic school. Never mind, continue.
So, I mean, everyone was becoming familiar at the time with a lot of those tropes used. That being said, the writers, which one of them actually later would Alan Smithy himself as the producer, but Michael Ritchie, Mickey Rose, Jerry Belson all kind of wrote together on this. Michael Ritchie was the main writer, and he's known for a lot of things. He collaborated with Woody Allen. They're very close friends professionally. He worked on the Dean Martin Show. He'd worked for Johnny Carson. He did a lot of really clever television comedy at the time. So, I mean, he knew his comedy. Mickey Rose, Alan Smithy himself, and Jerry Belson, he basically only took credit, I believe, as a co-writer. There's a debate whether or not Mickey Rose decided to Alan Smithy himself because he wanted to just be entirely distant from the project, or because of the inconvenient WGA strike of 1981 that started mid-production. So this was filmed in Texas, primarily Houston. And
is there a reference to that? I feel like I knew that, but I didn't research this movie at all. So does it say it's in Texas at some point?
It doesn't say it, but there's some obvious stuff. And I'm reading this directly from Wikipedia, this little bit, because I couldn't remember it. Lamar Consolidated Junior High School in Richmond, Texas, called Lamab in the film, not to be confused with Lamar High School in Houston, Texas, which is known for its use in the film Rushmore. Taylor High School in Katy, Texas, was used for the football stadium, exterior and some interiors. And the parade scene was filmed in downtown Houston on Main Street. Anybody would have recognized at least the downtown Houston part. So the movie didn't really specify where it was, but some of the areas in the film are very clearly Texas.
Okay, maybe I just subconsciously understood it as Texas then.
Yeah, members of the Texas Southern University's football team were also used in this movie.
It was nice of them using local talent.
Yeah. Major flop, though. Major flop. Yeah.
I mean, I guess looking back on it, I can see why it would have been a major flop, but it really is. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it did some cool stuff with the whole horror comedy thing. Maybe the world just wasn't ready for a slasher comedy yet, but I thought, especially with the janitor, I thought the way...
Oh, yeah. The stick.
Yeah, the way they played with him and the way his body moved was just... I don't know. It was so great. I feel like a lot of the jokes in this movie may have been a little ahead of itself, like ahead of the times.
Well, fun fact about that actor is that he was double jointed, and his name was actually Patrick Boone Varnell. This was his only film role.
What did he do otherwise, I wonder? He's probably actually a janitor.
Well, for one thing, he did a small television appearance in a television show that never really aired. I think it was a pilot episode. But there's not much out there about it, except that he was decent. That's all they really say about that episode. Otherwise, it was underwhelming. Most of the cast has not worked in any other movies after this. A lot of them don't even talk about working on this movie. And a vast majority of them are actually were active in the New York theater scene at the time. And, it kind of shows, because they're a little better than the ones you'd typically see in a lot of the films this one was mocking.
Yeah, that's very true. I hate it when people that to me are actors that feel like they're too good for a role. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, they might have just not enjoyed the production process.
Well, that's possible too.
If you liked the music, you can find the original soundtrack on LP at the Forever Midnight store online. I guess that's interesting. Not that any of the music really stood out.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't even remember any of the music.
And just to quote a few of my favorite lines... Judy, you're not responding to my maleness. Horsehead bookends. Navert P. Red. And blank gets me hot.
Horsehead bookends is an example of a recurring joke that is nonsensical and works. It's so perfect. It's so much better than bats or owls.
It's a clear example, too, closer to the end when he gets killed. And I'm sorry if I spoiled that for you guys, that the woodshop teacher who's obsessed with horsehead bookends, as his entire classroom demonstrates, he gets sexually frustrated, and he takes it out on making these horsehead bookends, and he almost has a nervous breakdown when he sees these teenagers making out at the prom, and he's like, I've got to make some horsehead bookends, and he's just, sweating and, nervous. And
for no reason, I think he just says horsehead bookends. It's so perfect.
He says it a lot.
And that's the other thing I loved about this movie, is it was really tongue-in-cheek with the way women are treated in horror as well. It made fun of the lack of sort of feminist insight in a lot of the movies. You know what I mean? This was a pretty smart movie. Again, I really like this movie.
Yeah, trashy, tasteless, stupid, but it somehow gets the comedy just right. It's stupid, but not completely stupid. The movie knew what it was doing. It's clever gags.
Yeah, it was trashy and tasteless, but it knew it was, and it was kind of doing it to shine a light on how stupid that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this isn't dad humor. Not quite dad humor. It's more dirty, sometimes creepy uncle humor.
Yeah, kind of. But even, like, I think it's more progressive than that, honestly.
It's very good. I do think some of the gags at the beginning of the movie were maybe a little too fast-paced. It felt like every 5 seconds there was another joke, but it warmed up as the movie went on, and they gave you a little bit more time to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what's funny is I was in junior high when I first watched this movie, and I was taking woodshop, and it seriously took me the whole year to make a bookshelf.
Yeah, I cut my finger off in woodshop when I was 17.
Jesus.
Yeah, we were trying to make, this is so redneck. You're going to love this. I don't mean to derail, but this is a story that needs to be told. So we were supposed to build an outhouse on wheels because at our local county fair, they had, and maybe still have, I don't know, they have outhouse races where you build an outhouse on wheels and you race them on the fairgrounds. Our woodshop teacher wanted us to build little tiny scale model first. Mm-hmm. So I was in charge of cutting all these teeny tiny 2x4s. And I'm 17. I hadn't slept in 2 days. I was probably enhanced in one way or another. I was a little bit of a problem child.
You were a bad seed.
Yeah, kind of. So I wasn't really paying attention as I was cutting these scale 2x4s. So I'm cutting, and I'm cutting way too fast, and I'm talking to my partner, and I feel this weird vibration, and I pull my hand back and, like, flick it up to down, like in a vertical motion, because I know I did something, but I didn't know what. Oh. And then I looked straight ahead at my partner, and I had flung a perfect line of blood from his forehead straight down the middle of his body. And that's when I realized something was wrong. So I look at my finger, and the tip of my middle finger, I can still, like, it didn't hit bone. It just nailed the fatty tissue, so I can actually feel the bone just under my skin. But anyways, I'm looking at it, and the blood, as my heart is beating, it's just shooting blood out of my finger. And my first thought is, oh crap, I better not get any more of this on the floor. So I put my hand under it, and I walk over to my woodshop teacher, and I'm not going to say his name, but I'm like, sir, I need to go to the nurse. And dude melted down. Like, he had no idea what to do. He was stuttering, and I didn't even feel any pain. Like, I was probably in shock, but I remember all this.
And then he just started focusing on his horsehead bookends.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, he's just horsehead bookends. He's melting down, and somebody else is like, all right, let's go to the nurse. So I'm bleeding everywhere. I think at this point I might have one of those crappy state-issued paper towels you get out of the machine on my hand. I don't know. So I walk down, I go to the nurse, I go to the hospital, and everything's fixed. But, yeah, so that's my outhouse finger story. Horsehead bookends. There, I brought it all back full circle.
And after all was said and done, Corey peed red.
What? I hope that didn't happen. I peed red out of my finger. I sometimes think about that poor kid that I flung blood on, because it was a lot of blood. I wonder if he thinks about it.
Did you know,
if it affected him. No, well, I mean, I'm sure I did. I ended up leaving high school about a year later. I dropped out, got my GED, and went to college, folks. So high school's a joke. Everybody, kids, go do that right now.
Kids, don't stay in school, but keep going to school.
No, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I may have ran into him in the halls or something, but I didn't. I mean, I was a selfish little kid then. I didn't think about it.
I'm just picturing for the rest of the year, he never wipes the blood off. It's just always like fresh.
Just keeps it as war paint. No, what I think about is, does this kid sometimes, like, does he talk to a therapist about this moment where the weird punk rock kid flung blood all over him? Because I was like a goth punk at this point, you know, like I had like leather jacket, like tattered black fishnets on my arms and stuff like that. So to this kid, and I mean, this was the early 90s, so this was still when weird wasn't exactly an okay thing to be. So there's all the Satanist rumors, all that stuff. So like this evil death kid flung blood on the board. The kid may have thought I did it on purpose to curse him. Like, I don't know. I don't know what kind of
Listen, if you never heard stories about that from anyone else, then chances are he got over it.
I hope so. But I also hope that he had to talk to a therapist later on in life.
So anyway, guys, watch Saturday the 14th.
I'm sorry I derailed the hell out of that.
And Student Bodies, in that order.
Yeah, or just watch Student Bodies.
Yeah, you won't be disappointed. You gotta be the kind of person who's not a horror purist, though. If you are a horror purist, well, you can just still give us the listens, but get out of here until we finally finish that Witch Hunter episode we've been sitting on.
If you're a horror purist, still listen to our show and tweet at us, but don't expect me to be nice to you.
Or don't expect us to not occasionally talk about funnier horror films, because that's just too much.
Exactly. Actually, I think we're at our best when we talk about ridiculous movies. I kind of prefer it.
I think that's true. Corey, I've got a good one for you.
What is that?
What is the difference between a hungry monster and a greedy monster?
I don't know what.
One longs to eat, the other eats too long. Jokes courtesy of Monster Madness by Joseph Rosenblum.
I don't know if I want to thank that guy.
It's this joke book I've had since I was probably 6 or 7, and I distinctly, I loved it when I first got it, and I distinctly remember going to IHOP with my parents, in the evening, and I had the book with me, and I kept, every time the waitress would come over, I would tell her another joke.
Actually, I bet that waitress loved that.
She laughed a lot.
That was probably a great, shift for her. I always love it when people do stuff like that to me at work.
So if you would like to check out our blog, you can find us at Hallow-Holic.blogspot.com or Hallow-Holic.wordpress.com.
You can tweet us at Nowhere23 or search for Hallow-Holics. I will respond. I will follow back.
He will wear negligee.
I may do that as well.
You can email us at Hallow-Holic you can email us at Hallow-Holics, HALLOWHOLICS at Outlook.com.
And you can find us on Podpedia, a wiki for up-and-coming podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't you hit them with that other thing I always forget to say, Maddie?
They don't pay us or ask us to do that. They ask us to do this. They don't demand it.
No, that's not actually what I meant. I meant the portal thing.
Oh, yes, you can find the portal at HHA, so it's as simple as that.
But yeah, they do make us say this.
Oh my gosh.
I tried not to say it. Actually, I said it twice this time. Never mind.
Just for that, I'm going to read you one more joke.
Oh, all right.
When a monster travels on an airplane, where does he sit?
I don't know.
Anywhere he wants to.
Thanks for listening, everybody.